All right, and we're back to do the ladder of the album. So this is now from 1991 to 2012, or the present day, I guess. So for unlawful carnal knowledge, opening the new decade, or was the new decade, the 90s. Uh, this is a very strong Sammy album. It shows the band, I think, touching into more of their roots in terms of their sound. For those who were a bit more critical of the more commercial sound that Van Halen pursued with Sammy, I think would come to appreciate this album as being a little bit more stripped down and raw and just a bit more piss and vinegar, I guess. It's got very strong tracks such as obviously Pound Cake, Right Now, Spanked, Run Around, Judgment Day is a really good one. The production is very strong on here, very boomy and punch in the face. I feel is the general theme with For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I think it's a very good album, and I absolutely love the album cover. By the way, just that red leather, I think is really cool. Just to the point, I like it. Very strong album, very good. And again, shows a bit more of the classic side of Van Halen for those who I suppose missed that fun side. All right, balance. So a lot of the fans generally deem this the weakest Sammy album, which I personally wouldn't agree. I think that there is a significant amount of strength shown on this album, but there is also a little bit of flab and filler that they forgot to cut off. So I would probably put this in B tier just for the sake of the strong songs on here. So there's Not Enough, Can't Stop Loving You, Seventh Seal, Big Fat Money, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. There's a few others, they're just not coming to mind. But there is also a bit of filler as well. There's Strung Out, which is basically just, I believe it's Eddie just destroying a piano and recording it, only for then the next track to be Not Enough and the piano's magically fixed again. So what are you doing there, Eddie? But yeah, look, production is fantastic. It's really clear. It's probably their most focused sound sonically. But again, it does suffer from that issue of filler. And I think it could have done with 3 or 4 less songs, and I think it would have been fine. All right, Sammy out as well. Where are all the singers going? I guess out goes Sammy, in comes Gary. Well, actually, out goes Sammy, in comes Dave, out goes Dave, in comes Sammy. Oh no, in comes Gary. Oh God, I don't know. Too many lead singers. Anyways, Gary Cherone entered the scene for the 1998 album Van Halen 3, and it did not go well at all. It had the means to do well. You know, it had a very strong singer in Gary Cherone, who obviously did very well in Extreme. Van Halen musically was still great, but the struggle of filler is significant on this album. The album is just way too long. It sounds unfocused. There are potential ideas that could have done really well. So there's tracks such as Without You and Once, and I think From Afar. I personally like Dirty Water Dog, but the problem is, again, the band didn't know where to just cut off and say, okay, song's done, shut up. And that's why you get tracks that are like 7 and 8 minutes long. I'm pretty sure there are some tracks that are 8 minutes long. Van Halen does not need to have songs that are that long. That is not what I believe Van Halen is. Anyways, the production is not good. It sounds, again, unfocused, flabby, half-baked, and just doesn't sound like Van Halen in its complete form. And poor Gary, I guess, for getting caught up in all of that, because I don't believe that was Gary's fault. He just was, I think, he could have been the right guy, but he was certainly there at the wrong time. And I think this is where you start to hear Michael Anthony take a less prominent role. I believe some of the bass lines were actually played by Eddie. I would have to go back and verify that. But in a lot of the cases, even when he was playing, he was entering the studio when the song was already complete. So that chemistry just wasn't there. And I think this was also a rift in the band. At play with Michael Anthony and the Van Halen brothers, I suppose, with Sammy leaving and Michael and Sammy being such good friends, I'm sure that played some sort of role, but you could certainly hear it here. And yeah, there just seems to be some sort of fragmentation here that you can certainly hear and you can feel. Yeah, look, could have been good, not very strong. Supposedly, with the follow-up album, it was going to be much more aligned with what Van Halen is, and I think the songs were going to be stronger, but obviously Gary left before that could have been the case. So I suppose we'll never know. Um, all right, so let's kick it back nearly a decade later. Out goes Gary, in comes Dave for a different kind of truth. I personally think this is a fantastic album, extremely strong record. Obviously, a lot of these tracks are from the 70s, but you know what? Who gives a shit? Like, do you think every artist out there is using just their newest and latest written material? Like, I'm sure a lot of them are recycling old riffs or lyric ideas or whatever from ages ago. Van Halen can do that as well. I love tracks such as You and Your Blues, Chinatown, Big River, Beats Workin', but there's also some fantastic ones as well that were the hits, such as Tattoo and She's the Woman. I think it's generally just a very strong album, and it brings back that fun feel of the Dave era that I think a lot of fans missed. It gave that nostalgic Van Halen sound that I think was missing since 1985 when Dave left. The only thing I am not huge on with this album is actually two things. So one, no Michael Anthony. He's gone from the band by this point, and you can hear it. His vocals were such a vital part of the Van Halen sound that when it's gone, it sounds there's a sense of hollowness. And the hollowness is Michael Anthony's backing vocals. And when it's not there, you can feel it and you can hear it. And it's not right. Production wise, it's a little too compressed, a little too loud. I personally don't mind loud and compressed production. Van Halen, I don't think is one of those bands, though, that should be very loud and compressed. I think they need that dynamic range and that organic sound. So it was a bit weird to hear them so loud and pushing the limiters up to be as no words coming to mind, but basically Van Halen is one of those bands that I don't think should have been a soldier of the loudness war. This is my tier list for the Van Halen albums. If you disagree, that is fine. If you agree, that is also fine. I guess if there's any other bands you want me to do a tier list for, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the near future. Yasu.